Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. Welcome in to everyone watching or listening live or on demand. This is the Makeshift Managers Podcast. I am Austin, and that is Devin.
What
What's
is
happening?
up, friends? Nothing much, another day, another podcast. Football has me ripping my hair out, but beyond that, it's good. I'm breathing, so that's half the battle.
Football, fantasy football, always ripping our hair out one way or another. It finds a way. It finds a way every single time. So we're just going to get right into it. We're going to start trying something a little different. So to make things easier for everyone watching on demand, we're going to have these. We're going to have the score. So if you're just really here to find out what we think about one game, it'll be easier to scroll through and just look for the banner at the bottom. That's the game we're talking about, unless we're putting comments up here. But Twitter character limits doesn't really let me put a timestamp for every single game and every single prediction. So just look below me and you'll know what game we're talking about. Just like Devin will start talking about his Los Angeles Chargers in Arrowhead on Thursday night.
Andy Reid is the fucking boogeyman. It doesn't matter to a certain extent. Like, the Chargers have beaten the Chiefs before. We've even beaten them in Arrowhead. The Chiefs are the Chargers boogeyman until we exercise that demon. The game was close. The game went as well as I could have imagined it was going to. The Chargers were in command most of the night. They started the game out early, getting a 3-0 lead, and they were able to hold on to that lead for a majority of the game until the penultimate pick six that Herbert threw, which changed the entire tide of the game. Mahomes came out clean with a line of 235, 2 touchdowns, no picks. If you watched the game, Mahomes should have had 2 or 3 of those, but penalty flags and other circumstances allowed him to get out scot-free. Herbert suffered an injury in the fourth quarter. He, I believe, fractured some ribs, so hopefully he can be back sooner rather than later. I have faith in him and the Chargers coaching staff, and even if we have to start Chase Daniel come week 3, I think I'm confident in them being able to beat this Jaguars team. This game went about as well as it could have aside from the pick six. The defense played extremely well against one of the best offenses in the league, and our offense was able to hang with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid's newly revamped offense. The only thing that killed the Chargers effectively was the Chargers. Gerald Everett should have been pulled off the field. He signaled to the sideline saying, "I am tired," and they went straight to Everett. Obviously, he didn't try to make the play on the ball. It resulted in the pick six. It's the breaks of the game. The Chargers are now 1-1. I don't think this is some monumental loss. I think the Chargers are just as in it as they were before week 2 ever happened. It's a 2-horse race in the AFC West. And if the Chiefs got the best of us due to a costly mistake in the fourth quarter, I can live with that and look forward to the rest of the season, still having a lot of faith in what the Chargers can do and will do, as long as Herbert can stay on the field. But
yeah, keep going.
But all in all, there's not much to hang your hat on here, aside from the fact that the Chiefs were able to survive some of the heavier punches the Chargers have thrown at them over the last couple of years. But to lose by 3 stings. But looking at the entire game as a whole, and just the landscape of the AFC currently, I think the Chargers are still in this upper tier of teams that you can put faith in on a week-to-week basis. All it takes is one play, and the Chargers learned that to the fullest extent. So I just hope they can take this loss and learn from it, because Kansas City isn't going to let up anytime soon. And if you're going to want to beat them or the Bills, your team is going to have to be damn near perfect.
Yeah, I mean, you walked into Arrowhead last year and you beat them while they were reeling. I'm not trying to take away anything from that win. Last year was a great win, and the Chiefs kind of reeling after that and found their way mid-season and got all the way back to the top per usual.
Yeah.
The Chiefs team felt a little different than it was last year. At that time, I believe it was week 2 you played them last year. It could have been week 3 that the same exact game happened. It was a great game between two great teams, probably the two best teams in their division. We'll talk about the Raiders and the Broncos later, but these two are probably going to the playoffs as long as the Chargers can, right the ship and just be just fine as long as Justin Herbert is healthy. You can't feel confident with Chase Daniel for a game, I would say. Yeah. I wouldn't, any further than that, you'd be in a little trouble. Austin Eckler hasn't had the, best start in the world, but he had a very, great season last year. So anything less than that is going to be, a little worse. He was bound to regress a little bit. He's a great running back. He'll be fine. Mike Williams, he played that game without Keenan Allen. Gerald Everett has been a significant upgrade from Jared Cook and Donald Parham. In terms of that pick six, it's one of those things where I don't know if Herbert saw it and maybe you throw to Everett in that situation. But yeah, going hurry up in that situation didn't feel necessary. You were already kind of imposed your will on that drive. You were already right in the red zone. You had plenty of time to get there. So I kind of get what Brandon Staley was doing. You had them backing up. You had them tired, but it's easy to point that out and say that was the reason why you lost. Obviously, Holmes not throwing any picks when many of them were called back is a problem. Not getting turnovers against a team like the Chiefs is a problem. I think both teams are going to be fine. I still think the Chiefs will win the division, but who do the Chargers even play next week? Do you know if
they're playing they're playing the Jaguars? And a big thing for me with the Chargers defense is they came into Arrowhead and J.C. Jackson was able to play for the first time this season. But with a fully healthy Chargers defense, what we saw was that the Chiefs actually had to audible in terms of their planned attack. Travis Kelce was held to 51 yards and no touchdowns. The guys that effectively beat us were Patrick Mahomes and him doing Mahomesian things. Justin Watson broke off for a huge reception and scored a touchdown. And Jerick McKinnon had 2 receptions for 4 yards and a score. The Chargers did not let the Chiefs' game plan beat them, which is incredibly important because over the years, Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, especially Travis Kelce, have been Charger killers. But if this defense can stay healthy, Derwin James has been known to put tight ends in a box and not let them out. J.C. Jackson is this shutdown corner that the Chargers have been looking for since prime Casey Hayward left us in the last couple of years in terms of just his overall ability. But I get it's a loss. It's 3 points. But, man, this is the best I felt after a loss like this in a long time. Because this team, while it sucks to lose, I would much rather have a big loss come earlier in the year so you can learn from it and build upon it, as opposed to just steamrolling everybody throughout the year and then circa Pittsburgh 2 years ago, circa the Arizona Cardinals last year. It's great to start out the season undefeated and just be throttling teams. But eventually you're going to have to face some adversity. And if you haven't faced it soon enough, you stand the chance of just having the wheels fall off and never actually being able to stabilize.
And you get a team next week, Jaguars, who have significantly improved, in our opinion, but it's a team you should beat. Plain and simple.
There's different tiers to it. As good as the Jags have as much as the Jags have improved, the Chargers still clear them in every aspect of the game, unless Justin Herbert can't go. Then I guess Trevor Lawrence is de facto better than Chase Daniel. And who knows? Herbert has 10 days to rest, so Herbert might even be back. I'd like to see him get like a full 18 days rest, but we'll see how it pans out.
All right, let's move on. And just for those wondering, the Bills are imposing their will on the Tennessee Titans. I feel like we don't need to really, we're in trouble because we're not covering the Monday night games. Minnesota and Philly will be interesting. We'll keep an eye on it as we keep going. We'll just keep going through the Sunday slate. We'll move on to the Patriots and the Steelers. Patriots beat the Steelers 17-14. Boy, Mitch Trubisky sucked.
If you like ugly football, this was the game for you, man. It was the only game on in the morning for me. And let me tell you what, I did not like watching football on Sunday.
You just buy red zone at that point.
Nah, it's not worth it at that point. It's the biggest thing for me. Like, go ahead, you could talk about your points, but man, this being the only game available Sunday morning, I was like, I guess I'll watch it, but dear God.
I mean, I said in the beginning of the year that Mitch Trubisky was going to get between 3 to 5 shots, and he didn't look good against the Bengals. They won the game, but he didn't look good against the Patriots either. And the Patriots are a significantly better defensive team, I would say, than the Cincinnati Bengals. Bill Belichick knows how to coach, shockingly enough. I know that's a big pipe bomb to drop. But Mitch Trubisky cannot go 168, one touchdown, one interception. That just can't happen. You have Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool and Najee Harris. Like, you have a good team around you. You have the best team around you you've ever had. You've made the playoffs with the Bears. You've made playoffs with worse teams.
I don't think that this Steelers roster is necessarily better than those playoff Bears teams. Because that one year, that Bears defense was the best in football.
But you can never count out a Steelers defense. We've never been able to.
TJ Watt is out for an undisclosed amount of time.
Sure. Yeah. And that pressure does hurt a lot. But albeit enough, I still feel like Mitch Trubisky should be succeeding with this team. I feel like this team should be 2-0 the way the game played out yesterday. They should have won this game. Mitch Trubisky should have been able to find a way to win this game. I mean, Mac Jones was able to bounce back with 252, a touchdown and a pick. Damian Harris got a touchdown. Nelson Aguilar absolutely mossed a man for a touchdown. That was pretty wild. But it feels like these two teams are kind of in the same spot. I don't really love either of them, per se. They kind of just played hard-nosed football and beat the crap out of each other. And with two kind of meh quarterbacks and two solid defenses, that's exactly what this game was. I don't know how hurt Najee Harris was. I get it, he played, but 15 carries for 49 yards ain't going to carry it, ain't going to cut it. It's not going to carry it either, but it's not going to cut it. It was an ugly game. There's not a whole lot of takeaways for this game. Both these teams are 1-1. Both these teams are exactly where I kind of thought they would be after 2 games. They're 500 teams. That's exactly what they are. They're 9-8, 8-9 teams.
It's the biggest thing with this game for me is it just shows you how bad the Steelers' offensive line truly is. This is a unit that was one of the worst in football over the last 2 years. And a big problem the Steelers are going to face this season is just how bad the offensive line is. Because it doesn't matter if you have anybody behind center. It could be Mitch Trubisky, Kenny Pickett, fucking Bart Starr for all I care. No one's getting protection from this offensive line. Najee Harris is averaging 3.3 yards per carry. It's not a good offensive line. And whenever you have a terrible offensive line and a middling quarterback, it's not going to be able to be conducive to a lot of wins. What the Patriots do have is a stellar head coach, a solid defense. While it's improving, it is younger than the Patriots units we've seen in the past. They have an identity. The Steelers ran the ball a little over like 20 to 22 times. With the Patriots, their two running backs, you got a total of 24 carries between the two of them. And Ramondre Stevenson averaged 5.2 yards a carry. Damian Harris averaged 4.7 yards per carry. Their offensive line is creating holes for these guys to pound the ball and get adequate yardage. You see it in the overall stats. They killed them on the ground in terms of rushing yards, 124 to 91. They beat them in passing yards. And the time of possession tells the story. These are two teams that aren't very far apart, but because of the offensive line for New England, they were able to hold on to the ball for 33 minutes comparatively to the 26 that Pittsburgh had it. Because if you're looking at the quarterbacks, there's not much of a difference besides some yardage. Yards are cool if they result in points, but this game wasn't about the points. It was about the time of possession and being able to keep the other team off of the field. Because you could have given both of these teams a couple extra possessions. I think the score remains the same. Two inefficient offenses with two pretty good defenses playing to see who gets the ball last and just praying to God that they have a shot to win it. Because Mitch isn't the answer. Mac has to be the answer for New England unless they crater. But it was just two average to slightly below average teams in a bar fight. And one of them had to win. If you watch this game, I am sorry. We're going to work on a class action lawsuit with the NFL to figure out why this was the only game on television.
You might be entitled to financial compensation.
There are no good takeaways from this game. Najee Harris, 1 week off of that foot injury that it looked like. He got the carries. He just wasn't very efficient with it. And nobody was efficient besides Gunnar Olszewski. And he had a fucking muffed punt off of his face mask. It's sloppy football, and it wasn't good to watch. And I don't know if I can pick either of these teams to win next week. So we'll take that as we see it. But, man. But speaking of taking things, Brian DeBoll is taking New York by storm.
Boy, I got strong
Holy
feelings
crap.
with this game, but please kick us off.
So as I said, the only game that was televised for me before the 4 o'clock slate was the Steelers versus the Patriots. So in part, I was not able to witness this slobber knocker of the Carolina Panthers versus the New York Giants. Christian McCaffrey, whenever he is healthy, is the best running back in football, give or take, if you're splitting hairs. 15 carries, 102 yards, and 6.8 per carry. That is hard to do. Didn't score a touchdown, which obviously hurts the Panthers. Baker Mayfield, pedestrian as always, 145 yards and a touchdown. Didn't throw a pick, so that's good. DJ Moore is that guy. We love DJ Moore on this podcast. Robbie Anderson went back to earth, and this was a game that was decided by a coin flip, it felt like. These teams are very close to each other. I thought that the Panthers were a bit more talented, especially on defense, than this New York Giants unit. But Daniel Jones did his best Baker Mayfield impersonation and not throwing a turnover for the week and a touchdown. Saquon was not as efficient as his week 1 performance. Richie James led the receivers in terms of yardage. This was just an ugly offensive game, to say the least. A lot of field goals, and by a lot of field goals, I mean a lot of field goals. If you are Graham Gano, shout out you, because you are the pulse of this Giants football team after this week. You accounted for over half of the points. And so that's just the way that it was. Eddie Pinheiro, he had them in this game. Like, two teams with very talented groups, just not able to efficiently move the ball. And I get it. The Panthers beat them out in total yards. The Giants beat them out in passing yards. And obviously the Panthers beat them out in rushing yards. The Panthers were far more efficient in yards per play. But looking down the line, Panthers were dreadful on third down. They both had 18 first downs. The Giants ran about 16 more plays. Both teams got to the quarterback in a respectable way. Same amount of punts, similar amount of penalties. Giants had more yardage out of it. Came down to the turnovers. The Panthers lost 2 fumbles. That cannot happen in a game where you lose by 3 points. And whenever you're turning the ball over twice and the Giants aren't giving it back, it will be reflected in the time of possession, where they were dominant for the Giants. Panthers are 0-2. Matt Rule, I can't wait till he's in the periodicals looking for his next gig, because I don't know what else we need to see out of him.
Holy fuck, dude. Fire Matt Rule's fucking ass at this point. I cannot stand watching this dude coach a talented offense anymore. I cannot fucking stand it. Christian fucking McCaffrey had 6.8 yards per carry, 15 carries for 102 yards, like you mentioned. And what did he do every time he went down in the red zone? He expected Baker Mayfield to pass the ball. Baker Mayfield went 14 for 29. How in the fuck are you going to go away from a guy that gets you down there? How do you only have 4 receptions for 26 yards? I get it. I don't expect him to touch the ball 35 times like he used to. 12 receptions, this and that. But McCaffrey is running through them with ease, through the tackles, on the outside. He's catching the ball. He's getting you in the red zone. And then you expect Baker Mayfield, you call 3 straight pass plays, and you get 1 touchdown out of it to DJ Moore? What the fuck are you doing?
The biggest problem with Matt Rule at this point is it's always felt like to me that he is coaching to keep his job, and it doesn't feel like that right now, genuinely, because the thing about Christian McCaffrey is maybe the front office wants him on a pitch count just to try and conserve whatever they have of him, because he hasn't been able to play the last 2 seasons at the price tag of one of the most expensive backs in football. If Matt Rule was coaching to keep his job, McCaffrey has more than 20 touches any week. I don't care how they're manufactured. He had 19 this week, but that still feels light. And I get it. He's been injured in the last couple of years. But everybody gets injured. Look at what happened to Trey Lance this week. It just happens. You cannot predict health in football. It is a very dangerous game week to week. And even so, with a Baker Mayfield as your quarterback, the only times we've ever seen him as a successful option in the NFL is whenever he has an elite rushing attack to pair with his pass catchers. There's a man called Nicholas Chubb, or we refer to him as Nicholas Chubb on this podcast, or you could call him Nick. It does not matter. He basically was the grandmaster plan for the Browns this week. And whenever you have a stellar running game, Baker Mayfield plays better. Whenever Baker doesn't have to make the passing touchdown in the red zone, it makes his life a lot easier. And I mean,
I'm sorry, but we'll get to the Jags and Colts pretty soon. But James Robinson had 23 touches. He averaged 2.8 yards per carry.
And he fucking tore his Achilles like less than 12 months ago. Like,
is it real quick? Is it fair to say Trevor Lawrence is better than Baker Mayfield?
Trevor Lawrence is, yeah, it's fair to say that Trevor Lawrence is better than like almost half the quarterbacks in the league.
So a team with a better quarterback, I'm not going to say better wide receivers. I like DJ Moore. I like Robbie Anderson to an extent. Maybe they're kind of even, but I'm not going to put Christian Kirk on that platform of
a team with similar weapons and a worse running back.
A team of similar weapons and a worse quarterback ran the ball less. When their running back is significantly better, Christian McCaffrey, James Robinson got 23 carries with Travis Etienne breathing down his neck. Maybe not breathing down his neck, but they have a duo. Okay, Travis Etienne is way better than Chuba Hubbard. We've seen that. And James Robinson still got 23 touches. This pitch count is just going to cost you games at this point. He's 10-26 as a head coach. How many more times does he have to lose?
Matt Rule is essentially Zach Taylor of the NFC, but without like a winning season. And I hate Zach Taylor. It's this offensive mind / guru. Matt Rule has killed more coordinators than he's won football games in the last 10 years as a head coach. He is terrible. If there was a pot for, like, if I were a betting man, I would put everything I own into Matt Rule, first coach fired. I'm not going to do that because I'm not a gambling man, but holy fuck, something has to give. Because at first it was, well, Cam Newton's cooked. And then it was, well, we got him Sam Darnold. You got him the number one pick in the draft that featured Sam Darnold. If you don't figure it out now, you can figure it out in college or you can figure it out in the high school level. I do not care. You are not a head coach at the NFL level, and that's just the way that it is. There's not a single coach that has done more or done less with more. Like Brian Flores did more with less than I think most coaches that we've seen over the last half decade. Matt Rule
was told to lose.
At least with Adam Gase and the Jets, the rosters were kind of dog shit. At least with Matt Nagy, the rosters were deteriorating. With the Panthers, they have only gotten better year by year, defensively and offensively. There isn't a single coach that I have seen in the last decade that has done less with more. And if you find somebody, point it out to me. But Matt Rule has to go. It's
really as simple as that. But I'm not going to take any credit away from Brian Daboll. He's beaten the Titans. He's beaten the Panthers. They've been underdogs twice. He's doing well out there. He's done enough to win with a whole lot less.
Well, this is how you do it. Like, the thing about the Giants is Daniel Jones and Baker Mayfield aren't that far apart. Baker is probably better than Daniel at this juncture in their careers just based upon precedent. But they gave Saquon 21 carries. They put the ball in the hands of their best playmaker, regardless of efficiency. Like, Saquon got his 21 carries. Saquon got 3 receptions. They were putting the ball in their playmakers' hands. And Daboll, for all of his faults, where's Kadarius Toney? He's not getting the ball, but Daboll is making concerted efforts to get the ball into the hands of what he perceives as the team's best playmakers. And that's not what we're seeing in Carolina. It's what we always fail to see in Carolina.
And he's even trying to use Daniel Jones like Daniel Jones is best. Daniel Jones had 10 carries, granted 21 yards, but his last carry iced the game.
Yep.
And that's really what matters the most in that sense. Brian Daboll has done enough to be 2-0. The Giants, at this moment, when the Eagles are playing the Vikings, lead the NFC East. Didn't think we were probably going to say that at any point.
They're 2-0, and that's more than I can say for the Chargers. The Giants have played who's in front of them, and Brian Daboll has proven that he's worth the hype. It's going to be an interesting couple of weeks after this week for the Giants, but they've been playing their ass off. So kudos to the Giants of East Rutherford, New Jersey, with New York Giants. Speaking of New Jersey, or also New York. JETS, 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 Jets. Kevin Stefanski. What happened? Garrett Wilson happened. Joe Flacco rolled out of bed and said, fuck it. Jacoby Jones is out there somewhere. Holy shit, Austin. I wish this was on TV because, man, this is probably the game of the week in terms of just the overall turnout and how it went. Like, this game had twists, it had turns, it had Breece Hall averaging 7 yards a carry.
If Tua Tagovailoa didn't throw for 6 touchdowns, this would have been the game of the week.
Yes.
I watched Red Zone with my buddies for 7 hours yesterday. And obviously, this game, I was back from vacation. I sat in my chair the day before I was going back to work, and I watched football all fucking day because I have to work next Sunday, so I miss, next Sunday a decent amount. But this game obviously came up, and I'm watching the game, and the Browns are up. They're up 30 to what would it have been? 17. They're up 30 to 17 or 24-17. Sorry.
Yep.
Kareem Hunt gets the first down and gets shoved out of bounds with a little over 2 minutes left. I'm like, that's kind of weird. You'd think you'd want to dodge that, but he got shoved out. It happens, whatever. And it just sat in the back of my mind. I was like, man, that could be something you think about later on. Then Nick Chubb scores. You're like, okay, they're in the red zone. You can just finish the game and be done with it. But Nick Chubb scores. Okay, I was a little upset because I was playing him in fantasy. No big deal. I win that matchup anyways, but it's just weird. And then Cade York misses the point after, and you're like, okay, it's 30 to 17. Joe Flacco shows up and says, I don't know what he says.
Is that
but he throws a touchdown.
Yeah.
He throws a touchdown. And then you watch the onside kick. You're like, they never get it. It never happens. And what happened, Devin? They fucking got it.
They fucking
got it. And what did Joe Flacco do? He throws it to arguably the best wide receiver they have on the team, and Garrett Wilson, and torches them down the middle. Kicks in after, and the Jets win 31-30. Joe Flacco is third in the league in passing yards. This really says more about the Browns than anything else. Shout out to Joe Flacco for having a great fucking game. Shout out to Joe fucking Flacco. For 307 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions.
How does this complicate the Zach Wilson timeline? Is Zach Wilson the future of the Jets? I was
literally going to ask you the same thing.
It doesn't complicate shit. Zach Wilson is going to have to come back and play well. Joe Flacco is like 39 years old. This is not a weekly thing. This is a throwback. This is essentially like the karaoke night of the NFL. Every other week, we get a vintage Joe Flacco performance. He's like Nick Foles, but at the retirement home. Like, Joe Flacco can sling it. He won a Super Bowl. Like, Joe Flacco was church for a solid 4 or 5 years. He was the nail in the side of Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Phillip Rivers, you name it, in the AFC for like a good 4 or 5 year stretch. He could throw it, and we saw this Sunday that he still can. The Browns cannot fuck around. They are better off now than they have been in a long time in their own division. The Steelers don't know what the fuck they are. The Bengals are 0-2. The Ravens are 1-1. They could have cemented themselves as the top team in the division moving forward. They have a very soft schedule for the first 6 weeks, which is something that the rest of their division does not have. And they're starting Jacoby Brissett at quarterback. I repeat, they are starting Jacoby Brissett.
Willingly.
Yes. They had Deshaun Watson waiting until week 12 for whatever reasons you would like to say. He got suspended. I'm happy he did. I thought it would be longer. I digress. They need to win every game they can before Deshaun comes back if they want to push for a playoff spot. They traded for Deshaun because they think they have a window to contend for championships. And if they don't capitalize upon that in the next 2-3 years, what the fuck was the point? They have traded away most of their draft capital in the coming years. And they need to be as good as they can be. And if you're going to blow leads like this to the fucking Jets, I don't care if Deshaun comes back. I'm not going to look at you as a respectable playoff contender in the AFC. Because, yes, the Chargers blew it, but it was against the fucking Chiefs. The Ravens, as we'll get to, blew it. but the Dolphins are not a terrible team. They basically were pushing for a playoff spot last year. They won 8 games in a row. Like, these are games you cannot lose. And the fact that the Browns did lose
Give
it,
up
maybe
14 points in a minute and 33 seconds.
maybe
That's
it's
not
their
acceptable.
penance for an offseason that was lauded by a lot of people. I'm happy to see the Browns lose. I think it's fucking hilarious. Like the city of Cleveland, I am sorry that LeBron James is the best thing to ever happen to you, but you guys do it to yourselves. So in the dog pound in New Jersey, it's the Browns are going to brown. As we say, the Mets are going to Met. The Mets are far more prestigious than the Cleveland Browns ever have been and arguably ever will. Terrible loss for the Browns. Huge win for the Jets. Does it mean a lot for either side? Probably not. Unless the Browns mess around and can't figure out a way to win the rest of these games in this stretch. Because if they
This
can't
could
come out
easily
of the
be
first,
one of those games where
That-
week 15 and we're like, damn, if you didn't get fucked up by the Jets, you'd be in a great spot right now.
this could be what the Chargers had with the Texans. This genuinely could be that game where you say, fuck, if we just won this game earlier in the year, we wouldn't have to worry about sweating out this playoff spot. Because any week matters, especially in the AFC, because there's going to be hairs splitting these playoff teams.
Okay.
Speaking of splitting,
What the fuck is this? What is this?
the Jaguars have won 9 straight against Indianapolis in Jacksonville. I don't know why we picked against it. I don't know. We did this to ourselves, Austin. We did this to ourselves.
When I texted you my picks, right? And I'm going to honor my picks. I'm not going to say I fucking went undefeated this week. We did fucking terrible this week.
We sucked.
We did fucking terrible.
I don't know why we have a podcast. We fucking suck, dude.
Honestly, I don't know why.
Good thing we're not a sports betting podcast. Because
I was looking through the games, and I hadn't seen. I don't think Monday Night Football had happened yet, or something. I didn't even finish the Sunday slate. I don't think so. I hadn't seen every team, but I was like, history tells me that the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to win this football game handily. They've done it 8 times in a row.
Trevor Lawrence.
Why would they not just do it again? And I texted you the word Colts. And the second I sent it, I was like, it's the same way I felt about the Chiefs and Chargers. The second I sent it, granted, that's a much closer game to pick. But the second
this game shouldn't have been close. The Colts should have won.
The second I sent you Chargers and Colts, I was like, man, I feel like those are the two I'm going to regret the most. And like, I was watching the Colts do literally nothing every single play over and over again. That is one of the most we talked about the Colts in the beginning, how they had to be 2-0 coming out of this if they want to win this division. They're going to be that the Titans are going to be 0-2 after tonight because they faltered against the Giants. Losing to the Bills is whatever. Everyone's going to lose to the Bills, seems like. But the Colts are 0-1-1. They tied with the Texans. I wasn't here last week. They tied with the fucking Texans. Like, I at first I was like, I'm kind of glad I'm not recapping week 1 because I'll get all my overreactions out. But no. What the fuck are the Colts doing?
So the biggest to be fair, Alec Pierce and Michael Pittman Jr. did not play.
I don't give a fuck.
Frank Reich, you fucking cut your kicker and said fucking it's a game of inches, you gotta be fucking close, all this bullshit. Fuck off. Like, pardon my French. Holy cow, Austin. I am talking about a game where last week Jonathan Taylor got 31 carries, 35 touches. I repeat, 35 touches. You are missing your top 2 wide receivers, and you get the ball to Jonathan Taylor a grand total of 10 times. 10 times. I don't care if you're down by 30. Jonathan Taylor touches the ball 30 times this game. They literally got dominated in the time of possession. They were almost doubled by Jacksonville.
Threw 3 picks.
Jacksonville socked them in the mouth. The fact that Frank Reich allowed Matt Ryan to throw the ball 30 times is a travesty. Trevor Lawrence is him. This Colts defense is no slouch. Granted, Shaquille Leonard, formerly known as Darius Leonard, did not play this week. They're still waiting for him to hit the field. He is a huge difference maker, but I don't think he makes a huge difference. Lawrence went 25 for 30 with 2 scores. Both of those scores going to Christian Kirk. James Robinson was not efficient. This was an ugly game for the Colts, and it was a decent game for the Jags, but 24-0 in the second week of the season to fall to 0-1-1 is inexcusable. This division sucks, and it's not because of the Jags. The Jags might be the best team in this division. And I told everybody before the season started, look out for Jacksonville. They could make some noise and be a thorn in the side of some teams. But I didn't realize they were going to be the Colts' fucking dad this season. It's embarrassing for Frank Reich. And the fact that Jonathan Taylor had 10 touches is just indefensible. I don't care if they were down by 40. They don't have a playmaker outside of him or Naheem Hines that you can actually count on. So if this is the Matt Ryan we're getting, the Colts are probably picking in the top 10. If he can be more like his week 1 self.
Hey, maybe they'll actually get a quarterback they can keep for more than a year at that point.
The Colts are a masterclass in overachieve. The Colts are essentially the Panthers, but like with competent teams and competent play calling. They've been swapping quarterbacks every year with their skill guys staying the same. But, man, they got to address something. And then even looking at their kicking, they didn't kick a single field goal. You know what would have helped with that? Probably having fucking Rodrigo Blankenship. Just my opinion.
Look, the thing is, if you're a Colts fan watching this and you're like, man, you don't know anything about the Colts, you don't know this and that. Here's the problem. You played the 2 worst teams in your division, and I'm appalled. Like, there was literally no reason why you should have tied with the Texans. I get Hot Rod Blankenship missed some kicks, but you can't tie the Texans. It feels like a loss to them. The tie might help in the end, but the Titans are just better. They're playing, a much tougher opponent in week 2 than you are, and you just get absolutely annihilated by Jacksonville. And it's happened for 9 straight years. It's not a joke. It's not a joke anymore. It's literally not funny. It's pathetic.
Well,
Jacksonville has had 1 good year in those 9 years, it feels like.
Jacksonville's been perennially terrible since like the early 2000s after their like Super Bowl run. The thing right now for me is I genuinely think the Indianapolis Colts, they're reaping what they sow. They treat quarterbacks terribly. Looking at this timeline from 2010 until today, Peyton Manning has to have consistent surgery after surgery after surgery after surgery. They fucking release him. Granted, they drafted Andrew Luck. They ran Andrew Luck into the ground. They have done nothing but do this to themselves. They had literally arguably the best quarterback to ever lace up a helmet or cleats. Granted, Brady's the GOAT, but in terms of overall talent on a football field, Manning is right up there. They had him for well over a decade plus, and they got 1 Super Bowl out of it. And then they burned Andrew Luck on both ends until he said, fuck it, man. I can't do it. And they've been recycling quarterback
for their
after
Super
quarterback.
Bowl because they lost to the Saints,
Bears,
right?
They beat the single best quarterback in the NFL that year for 8 games and the single worst quarterback in the history of the NFL for 8 games, and Rex Grossman. They beat the Bears. They beat Devin Hester and all the Hesters, because that was that team basically.
And then Manning's pick 6 against the Saints sealed that Super Bowl.
This Colts team traded Carson Wentz, a man that honestly should have been a comeback story last season. I get it. He had some really stupid plays to end the year. He threw for over 3,500 yards, had 27 touchdowns and 7 picks. Last season, it took Carson Wentz till week 11 to throw his 4th pick. Matt Ryan has 4 in 2 weeks. That cannot happen. And for everyone that said, oh, well, Matt Ryan's going to be an improvement upon Carson Wentz. He's not. He just isn't. And the Colts are going to be really bad if they cannot navigate Matt Ryan at his current age and the weapons they have.
Because their defense, thank the football gods that Matt Ryan only cost you a 3rd-round pick. You're lucky, the way you've been carouseling through quarterbacks the past year, you're lucky you've had 1st-round picks. You're lucky that they've been cheap. They signed Phillip Rivers, right? They didn't even trade for him, so I kind of get that a little bit. But even then, to get Carson Wentz, and like we said, Carson Wentz had a good year. He just had extremely poorly timed turnovers that cost him important games. And then they went to Jacksonville and got fucked up in Week 18.
At what point do we look at Frank Reich? Like, I understand it's not a good idea to fire a good head coach, but I'm going to go to Pro Football Reference real quick because he's good, but I don't think he's that great. Like, so looking at Pro Football Reference, I don't give a shit about his quarterback record. I want him as a coach. Do you have coaching? No. But the thing is, it's like, so we're going to go back here. Coaching record. So Frank Reich has a career record of 37-29-1 with a career record in the postseason of 1-2. So for his career, he's 38-31-1. And I don't think it's improving in his tenure. Something just doesn't click with the way that he coaches teams, the way that the quarterbacks perform. He's not able to keep talent in Indianapolis, and he's not able to consistently capitalize upon worse teams. The Colts probably have the worst record against losing teams of any team over the last 5 years. And that's off the top of my head. They are not good. That I've used up all of my Colts tokens in the last year and a half. I told everybody straight as an arrow the Colts are winning the division this year, and they shit down my throat. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, you can't get fooled again. And I'm not getting fooled. This team is not good. This team is below the contenders in the AFC. They are not a top 5 draft pick team.
They're going to get annihilated by the Chiefs next week.
They are nowhere near where they need to be actually contending. And that's the problem, and that's why I just don't see how keeping Frank Reich helps any of this. They are about 2 seasons away from a complete teardown because the team's only going to get more expensive.
Yeah.
Taylor's going to command money. Pittman's going to command money. You're already paying Shaquille Leonard. You're paying DeForest Buckner. Stephon Gilmore's getting paid. Matt Ryan's still making decent money. There's not much upside with the unit that you have now, and they're going to have to pull a Bears if this isn't going to come to fruition. They're going to have to trade off their assets because the timeline isn't going to work regardless of what quarterback you bring in. And it's just sad. It sucks. Right. You went from Andrew Luck and constantly being a playoff team to five quarterbacks in 5 years and just fighting for playoff spots. And it's inexcusable. I think it's crazy. Speaking of crazy, game of the week, man. Holy cow. You can dislike Tua Tagovailoa all you want. I love Justin Herbert. Tua proved something to me this week. I don't care if he's going to do it consistently, but holy shit, Austin.
I'm going to say this, as simple as this. Every quarterback has a really good day. Tua had a really, really, really good fucking day in the fourth quarter. Like, granted, he didn't have the best first half, but he came to fucking fire on all cylinders in the second half, and especially the fourth quarter. You cannot discredit what happened on Sunday with Tua Tagovailoa. You can maybe not like him and maybe think he's still not there yet after one great game, and that's fine. But you cannot discredit Tua throwing for 462 yards and 6 touchdowns. 6 fucking touchdowns against a Ravens defense that's supposed to be good. That got Marcus Peters and Marlon Humphrey back that game. That basically were annihilating your defense that entire game.
Dude,
what the fuck happened? Pay Lamar. There's so much to talk about with this game. Week 2 was so fucking wild. I can't even understand what's happening. And we're not even halfway home yet. What is going on? What happened? We still have 15 more games to go, and I don't know what to think anymore.
The Baltimore Ravens need J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards back. They need some semblance of a running game because 100%. Holy shit. The Ravens are usually known for their ground attack, which with Lamar Jackson you will be. He averaged 13 yards a carry, had over 100 yards on 9 carries. Shit's insane. Ran for a touchdown, threw for 3. Bateman broke out. Andrews, great game as per usual. The thing about this is I will not hear anybody saying, well, Tua, blah, blah, blah. Ravens defense sucks. Like Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters are perennial all-pro players. Marcus Williams was one of the best safeties in the free agent market, and their defensive line is still as good as it was last year. Patrick Queen is a solid linebacker. The Miami Dolphins effectively put up 2 points per minute in the fourth quarter. That's fucking insane. And this is what people were talking about in the offseason. This is what we imagined with the pairing of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. As you and I discussed before the podcast started, Austin, I was looking into the Jalen Waddle like intangibles and his just 40 times. Because I'm like, Jalen Waddle is just Jamar Chase with a worse PR team. Like, Jamar Chase is the style. Like, Kirkland Brand is Jalen Waddle. Balenciaga is Jamar Chase. It's just Jamar Chase has a different luster to him. But, man, Jalen Waddle is just as good. And I'm not going to say he's better. But whenever you have two receivers that go for 11 receptions and over 170 yards with 2 scores, I don't know if there's many teams in the league that can beat that. Granted, Tua is going to face tougher defenses, and the Ravens are going to face better. I think it's a stretch to say they'll face a better offense, because what the Dolphins have here is almost like a KC light, because Kansas City never had that star running back aside from a year of Kareem Hunt with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. And the Chiefs never had a solid wide receiver to pair with Tyreek Hill. This is the most dynamic Tyreek Hill is going to seem, because now on the perimeter, you're going to have to contend with Tyreek Hill Jr. and Jalen Waddle. This Dolphins team, while I don't expect them to consistently do this, has the capacity to do it any given Sunday. And it is why people have projected them as a wild card team. And some people are bold enough to say they're going to push the Bills for the AFC East. Like we said about the AFC West, Austin, this division is a 2-team race, and it shouldn't be clearer to anyone. This Dolphins team at 2-0 is one of the scarier units in football, especially offensively. And whenever you have guys like Xavier Howard and Byron Jones, it's Byron Jones, right? Former Cowboy? Or is Byron Murphy? Yeah, Byron Jones.
Byron Jones has been hurt, so they're missing him right now.
And he can come back. This is a team that's going to get better. And Mike McDaniel's a first-year head coach. I'd rather have him over Hackett any day of the week. It's all signs are pointing up. I don't care what the defense did. 469 for 6 scores is the best quarterback performance of the season so far. And Lamar put up one that was close to godliness himself. But, man, I wouldn't want to be in Miami because it's humid as shit. But they've got something cooking down there, Austin.
Yeah, I mean they do. They face the Bills next week. So that's going to be their biggest
that could be game of the week.
Year.
That's going to be
easily.
The Dolphins could lose that game, and I still think they're in a driver's seat spot for a wild card spot because, man, Buffalo's their biggest test aside from some of the other teams out in the AFC.
And the Ravens have to bounce back against the Patriots. Lamar did literally everything he could yesterday, and it wasn't enough. You're facing a significantly worse offense, so you have to win next week.
The Ravens lucked out that Cleveland blew it because now they're tied for the lead in their division, but they very easily could have been second to Cleveland, with Cleveland having a very favorable schedule comparatively to the Baltimore Ravens.
All right. You let Justin convince – I watched the episode. You let Justin convince you to pick the Saints. You had the Bucs.
I did.
And then you let them.
I did.
Real quick, shout out to our boy Justin Bruni. You're the GOAT, brother. Thanks for filling in. But I watched it, and you were like, I'm going to take the Bucs. And then Justin talked about the Saints a little bit. You're like, all right, you got me.
Fuck it, we ride. Nah, dude, this game was ugly. Holy cow. You take away Brady's weapons, what happens?
Completely expected.
No Alvin Kamara. Jameis Winston has like 3 broken metatarsals or some shit. He has like 3 broken parts of his back. It was bleak for both teams. Chris Godwin not going to play. Julio Jones out. Mike Evans will be suspended this coming week in week 3 for the altercation with Marshawn Lattimore. It's funny. My buddy Trent, he actually hit me up for some fantasy advice. He had Mike Evans or DJ Moore to start at his wide receiver spot. I said, Mike Evans might score a touchdown today, but he's also probably going to get into a fight with Marshawn Lattimore, and you do not know when that fight is going to break out. So I said, start DJ Moore, and if Mike Evans scores a touchdown, you fucking live with it because he's not finishing the game. And like clockwork, Lattimore and Evans fucking hate each other. And whenever
if there is 2 people in the league who legitimately hate each other, it's Marshawn Lattimore, Mike Evans. These dudes fucking hate each other. There's
no love lost. No love lost.
None.
The Bucs are a better team than the Saints. Alvin Kamara played, I think it plays out a bit differently, but no Kamara. Brady's better than Jameis, even though Jameis outthrew him. And Jameis was Jameis. I think he might be a Bucs fan. 3 picks is not what we've seen from Jameis as a New Orleans Saint. And so whenever Jameis is giving you a 30-30 season, you are about a 500 team. And whenever Tom Brady's on the field, you're expecting about a 6 to 650 win percentage, regardless of what's going on. Bucs have a better defense. Head coach-wise, I trust a more offensive-minded guy against the defensive-minded guy whenever the best quarterback on the field ever is playing. Ugly game. 20-10 isn't the score that I initially envisioned, but yeah, the Bucs came into New Orleans and did something that Brady hasn't been able to do since he joined the team. So kudos to the Bucs for getting the monkey off their back proverbially, but the Saints need Kamara back, and they need Winston to get healthy, because if Winston isn't 100%, he's going to be throwing picks. Their ceiling tanks. And this is a team last year that we thought was going to be one of the better ones for a wild card spot whenever Jameis was healthy, and they would have been. So they got to figure it out.
All right. Currently, your 3 passing yard leaders in the NFL is Tua Tagovailoa, Carson Wentz, and Joe Flacco, just as everybody predicted. But it wasn't enough. Justin said it perfectly last week that Carson Wentz is the epitome of inconsistency. He'll throw for 4 touchdowns and 2 picks one week, and then 2 touchdowns, 4 picks the next week. I'm not saying that's what his stat line was. It was 3 touchdowns, 1 pick for 337 yards. But the Commanders' defense reared its ugly head. They did exactly what they were supposed to do. Actually, no. Sorry. The Commanders did not do what they were supposed to do. And I said in the beginning of the year that the Commanders were not built for a shootout. And the Lions played the Eagles pretty fucking hard last week. So... what do you even say? We love the Lions. Don't get me wrong.
This is one of my favorite games of the year, dude. I fucking saw this thing and I was like, I've never done heroin, but this might be how it feels. Like, this is how it feels to chew 5 gum. I'm not kidding. These are 2 teams that are not competing for anything besides bragging rights. This is a bar fight. I love the Detroit Lions. If you have not watched Hard Knocks this season, do it. Dan Campbell is essentially a giant teddy bear powered by espresso and just testosterone. Ron Rivera is a fucking fighter. That dude beat cancer like 2 years ago. We love Ron Rivera. Carson Wentz is fighting for his NFL life, just like Jared Goff. These dudes are in the trenches. They're just out here trying to stay on the field. And man, this was underrated storyline. Number 1 and number 2 pick in their respective drafts going head to head in teams for the teams that did not draft them. That is a beautiful thing. This is poetry. This is like literature. You couldn't put this to film. This was like amazing. Amon-Ra St. Brown, the sun god himself, rushed for 68 yards and caught 9 passes for 116 and 2 touchdowns. Amon-Ra, congratulations. You are that dude. DeAndre Swift, I love this man. 11.2 yards per carry, and he was on a pitch count, Austin. DeAndre Swift is that dude. DeAndre Swift also had 2 catches for 31 yards and a touchdown. Everybody was saying last year, he's just not that efficient. Deuce Staley and the coaches out there said, you know what, DeAndre, you could be the best back in the entire league. You just need to fucking fine-tune some stuff. And he's done it. Oh, my God. I love this Lions team. The defense, you have Malcolm Rodriguez and Aiden Hutchinson swarming the quarterback. You've got a defense that's featuring Jeff Okudah, one guy from a draft class long ago that everybody forgot about, and he's producing with some tackles. Alex Anzalone is an underrated linebacker. The receiving core is coming to shape. The Lions are effectively what the Jacksonville Jaguars were trying to do in the offseason. They have Goff is a bit older than Trevor Lawrence, but you have talented to young talented quarterbacks, and you've surrounded them with incredibly talented skill positions. Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift they are better than James Robinson and Travis Etienne, but it's the same blueprint in terms of skill position guys. And then you have DJ Chark and Amon-Ra St. Brown with Josh Reynolds. That's a trio of receivers that is respectable. You have Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, and Marvin Jones Jr., a trio that is above average to respectable. Like, they are fielding NFL caliber teams. And it's exciting for teams that have not been NFL caliber for the better half of a decade. Even with Matt Stafford, these Lions teams were not good. But it's great to see this team now where they don't have their franchise quarterback, and it's not going to matter week to week because they are everywhere else really good. And their offensive line is arguably best in the league. Like, we had the conversation about the Steelers and Najee Harris. Najee Harris averaged 2 yards a carry. DeAndre Swift averaged 11.2. Offensive lines matter. Jamal Williams averaged 4 yards a carry. Offensive line
Penei Sewell
matters.
fell to him at what, 7?
That was
steal.
Insane. Sewell was like the generational pick in that draft in terms of just offensive line prospects. Based on Slater.
7.
Shout out Slater. We got him at like 13. He's also a generational type dude. Just wasn't like that in college, or wasn't scouted like that. Carson Wentz did everything he could. We appreciate Carson Wentz. 3 touchdowns and an interception. Gibby got a score on the ground. Curtis Samuel, wide receiver 1 in Washington. Kudos to him. Jahan Dotson, again, 3rd touchdown of the year. Logan Thomas got a touchdown. These are 2 teams that I'm going to keep a special eye on, especially in fantasy formats, because they're going to score a lot of points. Their offenses have proven it for 2 weeks that they are going to be in games because the skill sets of these offenses are built for the modern NFL. And I don't care how good the defense is, they're going to put up at least 15 to 20 points a week. Electricity.
Yeah. The sun god. That's all I have to say.
Shout out to Monra.
The sun god is here, dude.
Undersized, doesn't matter. He is that guy. And then, Austin, I think you're going to issue in Niners versus Seahawks, right?
Yeah, so Devin's going to step out real quick while I jump in on the Niners and Seahawks. Obviously, the biggest story out of this is Trey Lance. Fractured his ankle after the 3rd QB run in a row or something like that. It's an unfortunate event, and I'm not going to get into whether the Niners are better off with or without Trey Lance. Trey Lance had 3 carries for 13 yards, and his last carry was the end-all, be-all for him. Trey Lance is not going to get a chance to prove whether he was the guy or not this season, and that fucking sucks. It sucks for Trey Lance. The Niners, all offseason long, were they going to cut Garoppolo? Were they going to trade Garoppolo? All this thing about Garoppolo happened. He ended up getting his contract restructured, and he ended up staying. Albeit it ended up being the best situation, the best outcome for Jimmy Garoppolo, because the Niners are the best team to recover from their starting quarterback being injured, because Jimmy Garoppolo, at the time, out of all 32 backup quarterbacks, is the best backup quarterback all around. It's not even close. Jimmy Garoppolo came in, looked like he hadn't missed a beat. 13 for 21, 154 and a touchdown. Even had 4 carries for 5 yards and a touchdown. Jimmy Garoppolo did exactly what Jimmy Garoppolo has done pretty much his entire career as a San Francisco 49er, and that's win games. Whether it was ugly or whether it was pretty, Jimmy Garoppolo wins games, and he's going to be the quarterback for the rest of this season. I don't know what this means moving forward for Trey Lance or the San Francisco 49ers. I don't know if Jimmy Garoppolo is a 49er or not next year. All I know is that Jimmy Garoppolo is a San Francisco 49er the rest of this season. They feel like a playoff team now more than ever because Jimmy Garoppolo is now in there. I'll just repeat just for Devin, since he didn't hear, that I'm not saying the Niners are better off with the Lance injury. Lance doesn't get a chance to prove whether he was the guy or not, and that just fucking sucks. It's as simple as that. I'm not going to victory lap Trey Lance's injury. It was an unfortunate that happens, unfortunately, way too much to running quarterbacks. They get hurt way too often. But now the Niners are basically back to where they were last season. Jimmy Garoppolo is going to lead this team, and he's probably going to lead them to the playoffs. He's probably going to get them to a deep playoff run. Pivoting to the Seahawks real quick, they did beat the Broncos on Monday night. Granted, I think the Broncos beat themselves. Geno Smith trying to say they wrote him off and he ain't right back. Well, Geno, you didn't write anything this week. You did exactly what we all expected you to do, and that was flop. Geno Smith is not a good quarterback. He went 24 of 30. It's great efficiency, but for 197 yards and an interception. And then, DJ Dallas had an interception. So, cool. The Seahawks were going to be good. They were never going to contend. They upset the Broncos. Cool, but then they showed up to Santa Clara and got their heads kicked in. Exactly as we expected. Devin, how do you feel about this whole Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo thing now?
This is the whole reason why they didn't trade Jimmy. If there's one thing we've learned about 49ers football in the last half decade is that they're constantly injured. Let us not forget whenever Jimmy signed his massive deal, he missed a full year with a torn ACL. This is the same team that lost Nick Bosa the year after their Super Bowl run to a torn ACL. If you play in a Niners uniform, odds are you've probably had a debilitating injury at some point in your career, or you're going to suffer one at some point in your career. I don't know if they're snake bitten, but these Kyle Shanahan-led teams are marred by injuries. And I'm not going to blame Kyle Shanahan for Trey Lance's ankle because that would just be – it's an unfortunate circumstance. Every time you lace the pads, you are liable to being injured. It's just the way that this game works. Certain injuries, you never play again. Other ones, you're back on the field 2 weeks from now. This one, he's going to miss the rest of the season, effectively creating a third-year starter out of a guy that has 4 games under his belt. It's the worst-case scenario for the Niners in terms of what this season could have been. I don't think it's going to affect them record-wise the way that that sentiment rings true. The problem with this is now they have 3 years of Lance under contract with 1 full year of trying to figure out who he is. It's effectively what happened with Tua. And it's not the end of the world. Trey Lance can still be a good to great NFL quarterback, but it helps out whenever you have the guy in his rookie year and he shows out. Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, stuff like that. So you have now extra years on that rookie scale deal to fully flesh out the roster and make your push before you're paying him the big bucks. So it's severely unfortunate and genuinely unfortunate for Trey Lance to be missing this year. But like I said, this is essentially a lateral move for the Niners. Jimmy Garoppolo has been good enough in the past to get them to the Super Bowl and multiple NFC championship games. To sit here and say this roster isn't good enough for that now would just be sour grapes. The Rams did not improve this offseason. The Bucs got worse, and the Packers got worse. If anything, if the Niners can stay what they were last season with Jimmy, with him now, they could be the perennial favorites for a Super Bowl berth, even with Jimmy. The whole thing with Trey Lance was always the upside. The floor has never been safer in San Francisco. Elijah Mitchell is going to have to get healthy, and they're going to have to pray that everybody else stays healthy because they cannot sustain more injuries. If this is it, and it's Mitchell and Trey are out for Mitchell being gone till like week 9 and Lance being gone for the rest of the season, if they can skate that and basically have minor injuries the rest of the way, they are set extremely well for a deep playoff run. Seattle, it's more of the same. Pete Carroll can't coach. This team is not good. Geno Smith is not that guy, and Tyler Lockett is probably going to receive for 1,000 yards. It's just what do we expect? You get 6 carries and 4 carries out of running backs, and they never had the ball. The Niners doubled time of possession essentially against the Seahawks team. They never had a shot. The Broncos definitely kind of played to no one's strengths on that Monday night game. They let Russ cook, and it was a SpaghettiOs type night with some beefaroni. It just wasn't good. It was not what was expected. And we'll get to the Broncos again later on in this week. I just don't know what to think of this Broncos team, and I know exactly what to think of the Seahawks team. Tank for Bryce Young or tank for CJ Stroud. This team is going to lose a lot of games, and they can get a lot better if they get the right pick. So, sucks for Trey Lance. Thoughts and prayers.
Quickly run through this one. It's a closer game than it actually was. It's 31-25. Rams got a safety to end the game, basically. But the Falcons made it interesting. Marcus Mariota played good ball and picked by Jalen Ramsey at the very end in the red zone. Sealed it for them. But seeing this game, Cooper Kupp is great. Obviously, it's not particularly close. But seeing this score, seeing a 31-25, 27, however you want to see it, it doesn't make me feel good about the Rams.
Nope.
It really doesn't. They won the game, sure. They were supposed to win the game. But I feel myself picking against the Rams a lot this season now when they have a toss-up matchup. They got annihilated by the Bills. Granted, so are the Titans. But this game shouldn't have been this close with what you're supposed to be on paper. You have a great defense, and you couldn't held down Marcus Mariota in the first half. You held Kyle Pitts at 2 catches and 19 yards, but you got beat up by Drake London a little bit. So shout out to Arthur Smith for saying he's not getting Kyle Pitts the ball because it's not fantasy football and they're trying to win games. Arthur, you're not even doing that. So figure it out. But really, this more says to me about the Rams than anything. I just don't feel good about them right now. They're 1-1. I think they might lose to Arizona next week. They just don't look that great. They don't look like the Super Bowl defending champs that we've come to know. I don't know. I'm feeling less confident about my division winner pick about them every single time I watch them. And I feel like they really have to show out against Arizona to shut me up a little bit.
This was a get-right game for the Rams. They did not have to travel. It was in SoFi. Cooper Kupp is on pace for 200-plus receptions, 2,000-plus yards, and 22 touchdowns. Whole lot of the same for the Rams. Stafford needs to stop giving the ball up. That's the big thing here. The Rams looked very suspect for a solid portion of last season, and it was Matthew Stafford turning the ball over. If Matthew Stafford has 2 to 3 picks per game, they're not going to be much better than a 500 team. It's just the way that this is going to work out. Mariota played well for Marcus Mariota. Cam Akers out-touched Darrell Henderson a week after everybody said Darrell Henderson is the future of this Rams offense. McVay does not like your fantasy football roster, and that's fine because I don't like Sean McVay. Get-right game, closer than it should have been. The Rams just need to keep building. They need to hope that Matthew Stafford's elbow is going to hold up and he's going to stop turning the ball over. Because if the Rams can hold on to the ball, we've seen them be a very efficient offense. And if Jalen Ramsey can wake the fuck up, they could stop allowing these number one receivers to get 100-plus yards and a touchdown because the defense needs to tighten up and Stafford needs to stop giving the ball up because they had the same amount of turnovers as the Falcons, but you're not going to luck into 3 turnovers every single week. And as the Chargers proved, it only takes 1 to blow a game. So they have to clean it up. Their Super Bowl hangover looks a lot better than another one that we're going to talk about down the line.
Yeah, I mean, and they barely won time of possession over the Falcons, where I feel like that's a little wrong. But I guess the Falcons run the ball a lot more, but I don't know. We'll see about the Rams next week. I feel like I'll have to go back, since I work, I'll have to go back and watch their game against Arizona and see if I feel better about them. Speaking of Arizona, Raider fans, I'm sorry. I watched live with my Raiders fan buddy, and yep, Kyler legitly can't play video games on his contract, has to study 4 hours a week. I'm just kidding, but my man was a video game that day, and he converted things that didn't really make a whole lot of sense. They blew this game. The Raiders blew this game terribly, and went into overtime. Hunter Renfrow fumbled the ball, albeit Arizona on their first possession made no sense to me, where I feel like they could just kick the 50-something yarder with Matt Prater because, you have Matt Prater, literally one of the best legs in the game in terms of distance. I didn't understand not kicking that field goal at all, but Hunter Renfrow fumbled for the second time. On back-to-back plays, they pick it up and take it all the way. Probably the heartbreaking loss of the year for Vegas in week 2. And now they're 0-2. It's not looking good. Derek Carr didn't have that great of a day, albeit they lost time of possession very badly. Cardinals had it for 36 minutes, so they beat him by almost 7 minutes. Derek Carr, 252 yards, 2 touchdowns. He didn't turn the ball over. It's not his fault. Hunter Renfrow fumbled the ball, but Devontae Adams had 2 catches for 12 yards. So
that can't happen.
No,
that cannot happen.
It literally can't.
The whole point of getting Devontae Adams is to give Devontae Adams 12 receptions a game. I'm not even talking about fantasy football's sake. The reason the Packers were so good, and the reason why Matt LaFleur loses 2 games a year for the bulk of his coaching career, is because you have a Devontae Adams who just feed the ball. There's a reason why the Packers were so efficient. There's a reason why Aaron Rodgers is the back-to-back NFL MVP. There's 2 initials, DA. Devontae Adams. It's fucking insane to me. Like, I get it. This is a Josh McDaniels-led offense, which is why I don't get it, because Josh McDaniels doesn't get offense. So all I'm saying is this Raiders team is good. They are not great. Their defense is putrid. The Cardinals are a good team. Not great. Their defense is also putrid. But they let the Cardinals hang around. And whenever you have a team that is closely matched up, you're going to pick the quarterback. I don't care who you are. Kyler Murray is a better quarterback than Derek Carr. Well, Derek Carr's more traditional. Kyler Murray is a better player than Derek Carr ever has been and probably ever will be. It is a fact of the matter. Sucks Derek Carr's knee went whenever it did. But Kyler Murray right now is better than Derek Carr has ever been. And that's why I can lend myself to pick the Cardinals in a matchup like this. Really tough breaks.
Let me tell you this. Kyler Murray threw a pick, and he outthrew Derek Carr by 25 yards. But what do you think made a bigger difference? Derek Carr's 1 carry for 9 yards or Kyler Murray's 5 carries for 28 yards and a touchdown? Kyler Murray's just a better playmaker.
It's not the fact that he's rushing for yards, because like with Lamar, yes, he rushes for almost 150 yards in a week. It's like, holy shit, that's crazy. Kyler isn't that type of runner. Kyler is a pocket passer whenever it comes down to it. Kyler uses his legs to extend plays. We saw it on the one drive where he ended up scampering into the end zone for the 2-point conversion. And then on the penultimate 2-pointer that he threw to A.J. Green, without his movement, that play is not possible. He quarterbacked that entire thing. He pointed out A.J.
delay a game on purpose almost.
Kyler Murray is operating at a level that we didn't even see last year whenever he was in the MVP talks at the start of their like crazy run. Like, I know there was a lot of shit said about Kyler Murray and like his off-field habits, but if this is him whenever he hasn't been doing the homework, he's only going to get better. And to doubt Kyler Murray, he's always faced doubters. This is a man that was drafted first overall in the MLB draft and first overall in the NFL draft.
Shout out to the Oakland Athletics.
The disrespect eventually has to stop. Kyler Murray is a good to great quarterback, albeit. And maybe it's Cliff holding him back, but if Kyler's on the field, the Cardinals are going to be playing within an earshot of most teams, especially in the NFC.
Yeah. All right. Texans, Broncos. This is going to be more about the Broncos. We'll kind of back
Broncos
up a little
country.
bit.
Let's die.
I'm gonna sort this out real quick. It is not the 40 seconds that ran off for them to miss the field goal that I had the problem with. The problem is that I had Russell Wilson get the ball with 4 minutes left and they were in that situation. They should have never been in that situation to start with. How do you blow 4 minutes and only move about 50 yards and not use any of your timeouts? Maybe use one of them. I fell asleep because I was tired, but I watched it back and it just that can't happen. It literally can't happen. And we see it yesterday where Nathaniel Hackett and Russell Wilson have no idea what the fuck's going on with the play clock. The crowd was counting down the play clock because your time management was a joke. I thought Mike McCarthy was bad. He is. But Nathaniel Hackett is making a joke out of this, and it should have never been close with the Texans in your home opener when you're paying your quarterback all that fucking money. There is literally no reason why this should have happened. I don't get it. Cool. They beat the Texans, whoop-de-doo. They looked terrible doing it, and they lost to the Seahawks on Monday night. This team should be 2-0, and they're not. Like, what? Russell Wilson is playing terrible. Like, what do you even do? I don't know what to say.
What you got to do is hire a better head coach. This is pitiful. This is why I was low on the Broncos to start off, because Russell Wilson hasn't been Russ since the mid-2010s. And I don't care what you say. There's a reason why he's never received an MVP vote in the history of his career. Russell Wilson is a above-average quarterback, but I would never say he has been great. Russell Wilson is the epitome of perennial starter. He's better, I guess. Like, if we're looking at Russell Wilson in the grand scheme, he won a Super Bowl with an insanely good defense. Defense so good they coined a nickname for their secondary, the Legion of Boom. He was paired with one of the better running backs for his time in Marshawn Lynch. He had at the time we thought, good head coach in Pete Carroll. The Broncos traded away their future for a quarterback that we're not even sure was the reason why they won whenever they won. This is not Peyton Manning signing to the Broncos. This is not Tom Brady signing to the Bucs. This is a leap of faith from a franchise that's been pissing around in mud for the better half of the last decade. And this is kind of the result. I don't think Denver fully thought out any of this. They hired an offensive coordinator from the Green Bay Packers. You know what's not great about the Green Bay Packers? Their offense without Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. There's a reason why Nathaniel Hackett got a job. It's Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. That's just bar none. He stepped into the door in Denver with a downgrade on offense across the board. I don't care who we're comparing to. Javonte Williams is not Aaron Jones. Melvin Gordon is not A.J. Dillon. The offensive lines are not comparable. Even tight ends. You get what I'm saying. Like, it was a complete, fall off for Hackett whenever it comes to what he had to what he is now using in this head coaching scheme. And it would be different if he could call plays and he could manage the clock, but he just can't. He gave Seattle that game, and he damn near pissed his pants and lost to the Houston Texans. And yeah, Frank Reich tied them last week, but Frank Reich doesn't have Russell Wilson or Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton.
Time mismanagement loses you games. I know. It can't continue. It cannot fucking continue. You should have never lost to the Seahawks to start with. We are talking about so many playoff teams that we were talking about in our divisional previews, setting up to be playoff teams, and we're talking about these losses in week 2 that might matter the most. We're talking about the Colts. We're talking about the Browns. We're talking about the Broncos. We're talking about the Raiders. The Raiders should have beat the Cardinals. It's as simple as that. The Rams didn't lose to the Falcons, but they don't look good. This is the most wild 2 weeks I've been a part of in football that I can remember in a really long time. And it's only going to get weirder when we go to the next game. It only gets weirder because the Bengals lost to Cooper Rush. The Bengals are 0-2 losing to Mitch Trubisky and Cooper Rush. Joe Burrow has been sacked 13 times in 2 games. And they spent $74 million on their offensive line. I'm not even going to get into the whole Trayvon Diggs, Jamar Chase thing. You cannot lose to the Dallas Cowboys throwing out Cooper Rush and CeeDee Lamb and a Maj Podge of wide receivers. Ezekiel Elliott can't get anything going right now. My man had 15 carries for 53 yards. Tony Pollard had an okay day with 9 carries and 43 yards. He had a touchdown. His 4 catches for 55 yards helped. You got beat by Noah Brown. Shout out to the Dallas defense for showing up and sacking the crap out of Joe Burrow. I saw one play where Micah Parsons literally went around the corner unblocked. So that was a solid strategy, blocking Micah Parsons. The Bengals are in trouble.
Go ahead.
I don't want to hit the panic button in week 2. I don't want to overreact. But this team should be 2-0. And being 0-2 in your division right now, luckily the Ravens and the Browns both blew their games and you're only a game behind them. But you're not making things easy on yourself by losing games you should have won.
Well, this is kind of the thing the Bengals had going for them last year. They won the games they should have lost in the playoffs.
Yeah.
This Bengals team was bound for aggression. Jamar Chase can't break off 65-yard touchdowns every single play. Be cool if you could, I guess, if you're a Bengals fan. They got beat on the ground. They got beat through the air, and that's impressive whenever Cooper Rush is the guy you're going against. The Bengals are in a bad spot. This is an offensive line that was revamped the same way we saw the Kansas City Chiefs do last year. Joe Burrow was sacked 55 times last season. This offensive line unit is on pace to have him get sacked for 111 times on the year. Less than ideal. This team is they're not bad. This is probably the best scenario for any 0-2 team. but there's not much ways for them to improve if this is going to be their season. If they are going to be below 500 and miss the playoffs, they have nowhere to go. There is no vertical movement on this team. Your weapons are set. You have Joe Burrow. Mixon's going to get money if he hasn't already. Jamar Chase, you're not getting rid of him. T. Higgins has to be on this roster now. Get a different tight end, I guess. The offensive line, you've already thrown all this money into it. You're not going to overhaul it 2 years in a row. It's just not conducive to what you are trying to do. The defense is capped out. Trey Hendrickson just got signed to that big deal last year. Unless they can add to the secondary.
Out by Tyler Smith all game.
Exactly, and that's the thing. The only way this team is going to be able to improve this season or going into next season, the head coach has to change. And I know what you're saying. Zach Taylor just made a Super Bowl. The Bengals made the Super Bowl. Zach Taylor was along for the ride. Zach Taylor's play calling has been terrible for the entirety of his tenure as the Bengals head coach, and he's lucky that home runs were hit last year, or else he'd probably be sitting where you and I are at this point. Zach Taylor is holding this team back immensely, and they're playing below expectations because they were always bound for regression. Whenever you hit on the most explosive plays in the league, it's probably not going to repeat itself. It's like the Dallas defense. You can't bank on them being the leading scoring defense in the NFL 2 years in a row. There's just a lot of variance between these things. So while the Bengals are 0-2, they are in a better spot than the Raiders. They are in a better spot than the Titans are going to be. They are in a better spot than the Panthers and insert the last 0-2 team. I'm forgetting who they are.
The Raiders?
But the Raiders, yes. But the Bengals are not in a good spot. Baltimore looks really good. Even with the loss to Miami, Baltimore looks really good. And these two teams are some of the worst teams that Cincinnati is going to play this year. Albeit if Dak played, it would be a different outlook for the Bengals. But losing to Cooper Rush in week 2 after losing to a guy in Mitch Trubisky, I don't know how optimistic anybody could be about Cincinnati until they prove us wrong. So I don't know if I can pick against them next week, but I'm not confident in picking them until they show us what they're actually made out of. Because next week they're going against Mike White's team, the team that beat them last year if they were so magical. So something has to change. And if it can't be the players, if this continues into like week 5 and they're 1-4, I don't know how Zach Taylor still has a job. Because albeit with last year's run, he is still well below 500 as a head coach. He's essentially Matt Rule with some fancy jewelry for his AFC championship.
I mean, but the thing is, he won an AFC championship, so does that give him a pass in the eyes of the front office?
It would be different if it was like Sean McVay having a rough start to a year, or a Kyle Shanahan, or a Matt LaFleur. Matt LaFleur doesn't have the NFC championship, but LaFleur, Shanahan, McVay, they have half a decade of competent football teams, winning football teams. Last year was the first year Zach Taylor's ever coached a winning football team, and it was close to being a 500 season. So it's like, obviously he's not going to get fired this year. That would be a gross overreaction. But genuinely, I don't think they're going to be able to improve personnel-wise in many ways. I just think they're capped out. And it's only going to get worse with Burrow's contract coming up. Going to have to pay Higgins and Jamar Chase. And that's not even including the offensive line guys that are going to hopefully stick around. Like, this is a team that's best window is now. And if they can't maximize it right now, it's only going to get worse.
Yeah. For the Cowboys, is Cooper Rush the true number 1 quarterback in Dallas? No, he's not. Cooper Rush plays to the best of his abilities, and it was just enough both the games he started against the Vikings last year and against the Bengals this year. Cooper Rush threw for 235 yards and 1 touchdown. Didn't throw any picks, but he was only 19-31. Cooper Rush plays within his abilities. The play calling is completely different when you have Cooper Rush at quarterback compared to Dak Prescott. The Cincinnati Bengals defense is much worse than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, so I'm not going to play this game of is Cooper Rush the starting quarterback going forward. Cooper Rush is the starting quarterback until Dak Prescott shows back up. I don't give a shit if Cooper Rush wins the next 5 games straight. Cooper Rush is a conservative quarterback. The defense did its job, and the defense won us this game. It's as simple as that. I'm not going to play this game of Dak Prescott, Cooper Rush. It's that easy. This one's easy.
The Bears are owned by Aaron Rodgers.
The Packers have never lost back-to-back games in the regular season under the Matt LaFleur era. It's not going to start now. The Bears looked okay, but can we just talk about how Justin Fields threw 11 times? Like every time David Montgomery was blasting through the line, they stopped running the ball. They ran a goal line QB run in shotgun and didn't get it. I don't what is Matt Eberflus calling? What is happening? I don't understand anything that the Bears did last night. Granted, the Packers are supposed to win this game. The Packers have owned the Bears for the past however many years Aaron Rodgers has been quarterback. But the Bears had a chance to make this game decent. They could have only lost by maybe a score. They would have changed the game if they got that touchdown. It would have been even much closer, and the Packers would have been sweating just a tiny bit. But I think the Packers still win. But the play calling just doesn't make sense. Mike McDaniels feels like the only good head coach hire so far. We're not a fan of Nathaniel Hackett. We're not a fan of Matt Eberflus. Who else has a new
Brian
job right
Dable
now?
is on the list of being good. So
Brian Dable's
Passable.
fine. We won't count Dennis Allen because Dennis Allen has been with the Saints for a while. Doug Peterson with the Jaguars, doing what he can. But I don't know. Like we said, the Bears are going to be one of the worst teams in the league. I just don't know what they do going forward if they're not going to let Justin Fields try to do something. Throwing the ball away 11 times is not going to get you anywhere, and it's not going to show you anything in Justin Fields. If you're not going to let him play ball, how are you going to know if he can play ball?
Yeah,
it's as simple as that. Do you have anything to say?
Aaron Jones touched the ball 20 times, or Aaron Jones got about 18 touches, which is what he should get weekly, and it panned out well. Devontae Adams does not exist in this Packers offense. Aaron Jones is now the de facto number one, and they got him the ball, and he was very effective, getting 2 touchdowns, 1 through the air, 1 on the ground. Aaron Rodgers also tossed a TD to Allen Lazard. Lazard only had 13 yards, but he's a weapon that Rodgers is familiar with, which is something that he can't say for anybody besides Randall Cobb and Bob Tonyan. So if Lazard's healthy, this offense gets to tick up for me. The Bears are bad. No ifs, ands, or buts. Fields has to throw the ball more. I don't care. If you're down by 20-plus points, throwing the ball 11 times makes no sense. Then again, it's Chicago, and their sports teams don't make sense most of the time. So congratulations to Eberflus. You're the new Nagy. And until proven otherwise, your job is on the hot seat. So congrats, Chicago. You got another one. And speaking of getting another one, the Titans are getting another ass whooping at the hands of the Buffalo Bills. Holy cow.
The Titans are getting their fucking heads kicked in.
Stephon Diggs is ruining my night.
Yes, Stephon Diggs, all touchdowns and a lot of points make Devin a sad boy.
Hopefully he's benched from this point forward. I think they're probably going to sit him. It's the fourth quarter. He has enough. 12 receptions, 148 yards. Like, you're nipping on Lindsey's heels right now because it's Stephon Diggs. And I
love Stephon Diggs.
I probably cost her a win this week. She has Nick Chubb and Jalen Waddle on her bench. But it's Jamar Chase and Devontae Adams. Like, how was I supposed to know?
That's fair.
It's a 14 league, guys. Don't get mad.
I just feel bad for my brother who did a fantasy draft on his podcast and drafted CeeDee Lamb over Stephon Diggs in the second round.
I didn't hate that pick until Dak got hurt.
I hated it the second I heard it. For me, I won't dwell on it too much, but Stephon Diggs is just in the better offense and has the better quarterback.
I've never drafted Stephon Diggs.
Really? He's been one of my keepers in my league for like 3 years now. He is a staple.
The thing is, I've always been super heavy running back, so I've never fully felt like Stephon Diggs was the perfect value because he's been great. He's been like perennially a top 10 receiver.
In the second round, though.
Oh, I get it.
That feels different to me.
Yeah.
But okay. Anyways, the Vikings are up, or the Vikings are
They're down. Jalen Hurts is falling.
Yeah.
Jalen
We picked
Hurts
the Vikings and Eagles are showing up.
Jalen Hurts got 2 rushing touchdowns already. If it weren't for Stephon Diggs, I'd be winning in your cousin's league, Austin. But Stephon Diggs effectively ripped my throat out.
Oops. Yeah, Stephon Diggs is having a great time out there for fantasy owners who probably thought they were out of it and fantasy owners who thought they were going to win. And Stephon Diggs is just changing the game. Gotta love Monday Night Football. Gotta love Kirk Cousins Monday Night Football too. Always shows up to do nothing. Okay, predictions. I did predictions at work today. I left the notebook there, so I will have our full records next Monday. It's not good. It's just not good. I believe I'm 18-16 and Devin is 16-18. So we are not having a good time through these 2 weeks. So,
I am Zach Taylor. Actually, Zach Taylor's worse than I am. I'm more like who's his name? I don't even know. Forget the joke.
Jeff Fisher?
Let's get to the picks.
7-9. Jeff Fisher.
Basically. Jeff Fisher. Yeah, I'm the Jeff Fisher of our podcast.
Thursday Night Football.
Browns.
Okay.
Browns. Jimmy Jacoby. If there's no TJ Watt, Jacoby Brissett is the Colts. Jacoby Brissett. It's the Browns. Speaking of, give me the Browns. I don't care.
Okay. Yeah, give me the Browns.
Bills Dolphins. I'm taking the Bills because, dear God, if I pick against them,
I can't. No, I literally will not pick against the Bills all season long.
The Titans are bad. No Tre'Davious White is interesting with like Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, but Stephon Diggs is that dude, and I don't know if Xavier Howard's going to corral him like that. And I like Josh Allen a lot more than I like Tua.
You know, the Bills have blown out the Dolphins a lot. This might be a war.
Yeah, this might be the best game of the week.
Absolute war. That start every Dolphin and Bill you have next week.
It's going to be like a 70-point over-under. It's going to be insane.
Bengals, Jets.
I'm picking the Bengals because fool me twice, can't get fooled again. But I can't wait till I'm parading around this office screaming, Zach Taylor, your head will be on a pike, because I want the Jets to win. I'm telling you, I really want the Jets to win. But I can't, in good faith, pick the Jets to beat the Bengals. There's just no way. Are you picking the Jets? You're mad. You are absolutely insane. I would have given you picking the Cowboys over the Bengals because you're a Cowboys fan, but trusting the Jets and Joe Flacco to beat this team, like, I get it. The Bengals have looked terrible, but they've lost close games.
All right, I'll pick the Bengals.
It's not like the Bengals are getting their ass kicked week in and week out.
I know.
This isn't the Broncos. This isn't the Broncos. Raiders, Titans. I had Titans at first, but I'm going to go Raiders. I hate the Raiders, but, man, this is a loser-lose town matchup.
Can I just say?
Yeah.
Derek has 13 carries for 25 yards.
I have one share of Derrick Henry this year.
Me too.
And I am eternally grateful.
The Raiders.
Yeah, I'm taking the Raiders. The Raiders are a far better offense, and defensively, the Titans look dead today.
The Raiders gotten their asses kicked. Like, I get it. The Bills are the best team in the league right now. But dear God, they are just annihilating competition through 2 weeks. And what tells me they're not going to keep doing it? The Titans look terrible. And if Derrick Henry is going to have back-to-back poor performances, if he continues to struggle like this, Robert Woods and Treylon Burks, I think Treylon Burks is having an okay game. 4 for 47. Well, that's pretty good given the score. But Robert Woods is 4 for 39. The passing just isn't there. Ryan Tannehill's not having a good time. And the Raiders defense is, putrid, but it's held up somewhat a little bit against two really good quarterbacks. So the Raiders have the edge. They just are the better team.
The Eagles have held the Vikings to 93 scrimmage yards in the first half.
Oh.
That's terrifying.
Oh.
The Eagles were supposed to be good, but damn, I didn't expect this.
Oh, no. I mean, I picked them to win the division. It's fine.
Give me the Raiders. I think everybody picked them to win the division. It's just it's like Murphy's Law. You can't pick a team to finish 2 times in a row for the NFC East.
Football gods will stop at nothing.
Speaking of finishing, Saints-Panthers, I don't like anybody in this matchup. Jameis might be in a wheelchair next week for all we know. Alvin Kamara was out. Give me the Saints because Matt Rule sucks. I can't pick Matt Rule or anything.
Yeah.
He can't keep getting away
with it. Whether Kamara is in or out, give me the Saints. I can't pick the Panthers as long as Matt Rule is the head coach of the Carolina Panthers. It's just, I can't.
Lamar Jackson versus the New England Patriots.
Lamar
Based upon
Jackson.
last week, give me Lamar Jackson. I think the Ravens win. Lions Vikings is a lot more interesting right now. It's in Minnesota, which is the perplexing part. To be fair, the Eagles defense is really, really good. Like, it's vastly improved. Jeff Okuda is going to be guarding Justin Jefferson for a portion of this game. I'm taking the Vikings. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm taking the Vikings too. The Lions have just given up too many points to Washington and the Eagles. I just think it's just going to be another shootout for the Lions, and I just don't think they're capable of winning most shootouts, especially when the team they're playing is just better in a sense. So yeah, give me the Vikings. I'd love to pick the Lions. I think they're playing great. I think our Sun God has another great game, but yeah, I got to take the Vikings there.
It should be close, but yeah, I don't anticipate it going a different way for them.
Eagles, Commanders. Don't even think about it. It's the Eagles.
Yeah, it's the Eagles. The Eagles are going to be 3-0 to start the year, and Nick Sirianni got a lot of praise last year, and I was pissed because Brandon Staley missed the playoffs, and I was like, they have the same fucking record. But I genuinely think Nick Sirianni might get Coach of the Year nods this year if they can be as good as they are right now the entire year. This is the best I've felt about the Eagles since Michael Vick was the starting quarterback. This team is really good. Jalen Hurts, even if he's not going to throw for 200 yards a game, he is really good. The Gardner Minshew shit has to stop because this team is built to, oh, man.
Yeah, just stop this Gardner Minshew shit.
Mm-hmm.
It's overrated. Chiefs, Colts. The Chiefs.
Frank Reich's crying in his room saying, man, we could have had Patrick Mahomes. You couldn't have because you had Andrew Luck. Yeah, it's the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs are going – if the Bills-Titans is this bad, I think it might be just as bad for the Colts versus the Chiefs.
Colts it's going to get ugly. Not going to have a good time.
I am not having a good time.
Game of the week, Texans, Bears.
Derrick Henry's averaging 1.9 yards per carry. It got worse.
Poor boy.
Texans, Bears. Shout out Lovie Smith. I'm picking you, buddy. Revenge game. Former Bears head coach Lovie Smith. Yeah, I think the Texans have the talent to beat this Bears team because I think Justin Fields might throw -5 times this game based upon how Eberflus is using him. Darnell Mooney might not have a reception. Cole Kmet probably just going to stay at home.
Cole Kmet definitely won't have a reception.
This Bears team pisses me off. Just avoid all of them. Eberflus, if I could draft you in fantasy, I wouldn't. I would just like to say, please, just do something. Poke him with a stick. It's the Texans.
Give me the Texans. Chargers, Jags.
It's the Chargers. Herbert better play this. If Herbert misses the game, it complicates things. I'm still picking the Chargers. Call me a homer, bolt up, bolt gang or don't bang. Chargers are a better team on paper, even without Herbert in the lineup. I can't pick against my team. They need this win more than Jacksonville does. Give me the Chargers. And Keenan Allen should be back.
Yeah, give me the Jags. They're the best team in the AFC South. It's not particularly close. Give me the Chargers. The Chargers have to bounce back. They have to beat Jacksonville, especially in SoFi. I think it'll be a good game. I think the Jags can play ball with just about anybody at this point and look competitive. But I think the Chargers are just too good, and they have to bounce back.
Rams,
Cardinals.
Cards. You're picking the Cardinals.
I'm not picking the fucking Rams. I just can't. Arizona annihilated their asses last year in the first game of the season. It is Cliff Kingsbury time. We haven't reached week 9 yet. So I'm picking Arizona. The Rams have just not convinced. They got their asses kicked week 1, and they almost blew a lead to the Atlanta Falcons. If they're going to blow a lead to the Atlanta Falcons, they're definitely going to blow a lead to the Arizona Cardinals.
So hear me out. So
I'll hear you out.
Last thing I heard, Call of Duty is having an open beta for Modern Warfare 2 and Warzone 2 in the near future. I would like to believe Kyler Murray is someone that would be in the know and have some early access to even the earliest of betas. The Rams are still not terrible, and I still hate Cliff Kingsbury. And I do believe the Rams need this win far more than the Cardinals do, because the Rams still have championship aspirations, and I don't think the Cardinals are close to a championship this year. The Cardinals could definitely win this game. In the grand scheme of the season, in my projections, I need the Rams to win this game, and they need to win this game in general because the Niners' schedule isn't as bad as the Rams' schedule is. The Cardinals totally come out there and win. Jalen Ramsey's going to be guarding Marquise Brown. I don't like that matchup for the Cardinals. Aaron Donald is going to be going against offensive linemen that I cannot name. Do not like that matchup for the Cardinals. It will take Kyler Murray doing Herculean things 2 weeks in a row. And I just don't know if it happens. The Rams defense is markedly better than the Raiders defense. And Cooper Kupp is the nastiest receiver on the planet right now. So I'm taking the Rams. It could be close, but I expect the Rams to probably win by a score.
Titans brought in Malik Willis, and then he fumbled. So it's just
Love
everything's
that.
going right. Packers Bucks.
I'm picking the Packers. Mike Evans is not going to play this game. That means Jair Alexander is going to be matched up on Russell Gage. The number one receiver on this team is now Scotty Miller. I think he got cut, actually, so it's Russell Gage and somebody else. Keyshawn Vaughn and Leonard Fournette are the 2 and 3, effectively. The Packers need to win this game. This is the worst the Bucs are going to look all year. So I'm picking the Packers. I think they have more firepower on offense, and their defense is going to be facing the weakest the Bucs team that we've seen in the last 3 years. So I'm going Pack.
I'm going the Bucks. I can't pick against them. I get it. They're beat up. They're not going to have Evans, Godwin. They might not have Julio Jones. I don't know. I didn't even know why Julio Jones was out. I just know he was out last week, but I just can't pick against the Bucks right now. The Packers just don't really convince me otherwise. They beat the Bears. Congratulations. Everyone's going to beat the Bears this year except for the 49ers, apparently. I'm not really loving the Packers right now, and I know Matt LaFleur is probably going to win 13 or 14 games again, so he's going to shut me up. But right now, it's just they just don't look like that great of a team to me. So I'll take the Bucs in that situation. Falcons Seahawks.
God, this is ugly. I'm taking the Falcons because Pete Carroll sucks, and I think Arthur Smith eventually uses Kyle Pitts. Offensively, these two teams are just they're not drastically different, but Marcus Mariota is a better quarterback than Geno Smith. And I think, I don't know, man. You know what? I'm going to go Seahawks. I'm going to go Seahawks. Because the thing is, the Seahawks have shown us something this season. I don't think I've seen shit from the Falcons. They almost beat a Saints team that just got smacked by the Bucs. You know what? I'm a little too high for my horse right now. I'm picking the Falcons. I was like, wait, I'm talking about Pete Carroll. Yeah, okay, I'm picking the Falcons.
Yeah, I'm picking the Falcons too. Marcus Mariota hasn't been that bad through 2 games. Their defense really let them down for the Saints game, and they played the Rams hard in the second half. So Mariota, London, and Pitts, give that to me all day. I'll take it. Niners, Broncos.
Niners.
Yeah, Niners. If
it's the Niners and it's not close.
You want to talk about a team, now that Jimmy Garoppolo is quarterback, we're going back to the Niners that were last year, that are going to pound the ball and take time of possession. And then you're going to play a team who has time management problems.
The 49ers missing Trey Lance is not the Los Angeles Chargers missing Justin Herbert or the Chiefs missing Patrick Mahomes.
I said it while you were in the bathroom that
this is
out of all 32 backup quarterbacks, Jimmy Garoppolo was the best.
Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't a backup quarterback. He was literally paid to be a starter at the top of the league's
I know. I'm just going off depth chart at the time.
I get it.
And we talk about teams like, oh yeah, every single team who loses their starting quarterback is going to be in a tough situation. Except the San Francisco 49ers.
Except the Niners. It's insane, dude. That's the thing, because I was sitting there and I was like, them restructuring this deal is just hedging their bet. They are nothing changes. The upside drops a bit, but the team is the team. This is the team. They've had this team since 2019. Like, this is the end game. Like, Kyle Shanahan is not a dumb man. He understands how fragile human bodies can be. But yeah, no, I think the Niners are set to go on a roll. Like, and this team loves Jimmy. That's the thing. That's probably why he wasn't traded. The players play hard for Jimmy Garoppolo. Something that never happened in New England. The Niners locker room loves this guy. And it's effectively his last ride. If there's ever been a time to be motivated for the Niners, it's right now.
Yep.
And I'm picking the Giants. Just letting you know. I'm picking the Giants. The Cowboys could win this game, but Brian DeBoer's a different breed, man. He's a different man. He's coming from the top spot.
I'm picking the Cowboys. I'm not picking the Giants on goodwill of my soul. I could easily be wrong. The Giants are playing ball. They beat the Titans. They beat the Panthers. And it's hard to put faith into Cooper Rush. Like I said earlier, Cooper Rush plays as Cooper Rush goes. He's a conservative guy that'll get the ball downfield sometimes, but the reason why the Bengals were able to come back in the second half was because Cooper Rush couldn't move the ball in the second half and keep time of possession. And we could easily run over by Saquon Barkley. Our run defense isn't the best thing in the world, and Daniel Jones plays with his legs. So honestly, it's really up to Micah Parsons to chase their asses down. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game, as both quarterbacks aren't too great. The Cowboys' defense is probably better than the New York Giants. It is in the Meadowlands, but I just don't really think that changes the whole lot for us. I think we can come out on top of this game. I think we can be 2-1 in coming out of week 3 and being in an okay spot. I still don't think we're going to win the division, regardless of how long Dak is out, because our schedule is only going to get tougher from here after we play the Giants. But we've been counted out. We get counted out all the time. We got counted out against the Bucks last year. We made a close game. This year was not a close game. Our heads kicked in by the Bucks. Got counted out against the Bengals, and the defense showed up and did what they were supposed to do. So at this point, I can't really count us out. As long as Cooper Rush throws for 200 yards, I think we have a chance.
Yeah, it's a fair point. I just think momentum is a big deal, and I know the Cowboys just won a game. I still hate Mike McCarthy, and Cooper Rush and Daniel Jones are a wash. I don't know. I think the Giants are operating with something that they haven't had in like 4 years, which is just genuine momentum. And I think the Cowboys are just one step forward and 2 steps back until Dak gets back, which isn't a bad thing. Like, you guys are in a really terrible situation, but
yeah, the
Giants have an opportunity here to pace with the Eagles, and the Eagles are a far better team, which is dangerous for the Eagles, because if the Giants are confident and they're rattling off wins, that makes them more difficult to beat in their conference matchups.
I get that. Okay. That'll do it.
Yep.
I think that's going to be one of our longer episodes for sure, because week 2 was so fucking wild.
Just wild and insane.
Just comeback after comeback. I turned on the NFL Network this week, and there's going to be like 5 games of the week, because you can't pick between what happened this week. It was just way too wild. We leave you with the Bills beating the shit out of the Titans, which we both picked the Bills. I know we both picked I picked the Vikings. I think we both picked the Vikings.
Yeah.
So that might not go too well, as Jalen Hurts continues just to run around, and he missed that throw, but that's okay. It's only third and 2. It's 24-7. I really don't see the Vikings coming back in this game at this point. It would take a miracle out of Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson to try and make it back, but I just don't foresee it at this point.
Yeah.
Eagles 2-0, doing what they were supposed to do. They upgraded significantly, and they're playing great ball. You got anything else?
Don't pet a burning dog. Thank you guys for tuning in. If your team won, great. If they lost, get over it. It's a long season. Shit's gonna happen. Gonna victory lap Zach Taylor for the week, just because I know it's funny. Beyond that, no. Just thank everybody for tuning in. And it's been a pleasure as always.
If Stephon Diggs is the reason why you lost your matchup this week, Devin's starting an AA group on Wednesdays and meet in the morning, so you guys can get together and talk about your feelings, this and that, fantasy football, the way it goes, being sad, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's tough out here, man. But as always,
sometimes football just doesn't make sense.
Hey, man, in terms of fantasy football this year, I have a bunch of leagues. I'm going to lose games. It's the name of the game. I'll take the wins in stride. I'll take the losses in stride. None of it matters. It's all just made up shit. So, on to the next week. But that's all you got, Austin. That's all I've got. We can send them off with the one word.
Hit me with it.
Hey, from me and Austin to everybody listening. Peace.